Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome you guys all to IndyPy Conf. If you guys have any questions whatsoever, don't hesitate to ask me. Some folks in the room are definitely familiar with me, but those who aren't, my name's Calvin, and I am here to serve. And if you guys need anything, like I said, let me know. Or any of the other IndyPy folks, they're happy to make sure you guys are taken care of. Good morning, everybody. I want to make sure everyone gets welcome to IndyPy Conf 2019. It's our Automate conference. There are donuts and yogurt and breakfast out in the main area. So make sure you get checked in, get a name tag, grab some coffee. There are juice and water out there as well on the main table. If you have any questions whatsoever, do not hesitate to ask myself, Mary Beth, raise your hand, Mary Beth, Carol, Matt's in the room or they're by the 6 up table with all the IndyPy swag. Speaking of IndyPy swag, if you love our t-shirts, we have the snake oil t-shirt and the original IndyPy blue t-shirt back there. They are $15. I assume we also have the scarves for sale. If you guys want one of the cool IndyPy scarves, they will be back there for $15 as well. I think we might even have a couple pairs of socks. We are out of the hats. We used to have knit, beanies for IndyPy, but those have sold out. They were a huge success. We will get another run of those in probably next winter. I don't think there'll be much demand for them over the summer. So again, I want to welcome you guys all. We will get kicked off around 9 with an amazing keynote and opening remarks by yours truly. We will have a schedule change this morning. David Smith could not make it this morning. So you will get yours truly for a encore presentation of some talk I will whip up here in a moment. I guarantee it'll be riveting and engaging, and you will not want to leave the room for that. Again, if you have any questions whatsoever, make sure you come and find me. I am happy to help in any way possible. And if you haven't, go ahead and get the Slido.com up. If you go to pound automate conf, like in their little box, you can ask questions of the speaker through that, and that way they'll repeat the question and it'll get on the recording. We will be live streaming today to YouTube. That's a new experiment we're trying today. We will put out on social media on Twitter what the link is as we get closer to time, but as we kick off at 9 a.m., the live stream's actually up right now. If you can find it, it's underneath the same channel where all the 60-up videos or IndyPy videos are currently at. So if you want to send it out to your friends or anybody who couldn't make it, they can actually join us virtually over the live stream. If you picked up raffle tickets this morning and have not deposited the other half into our raffle, we have 3 items for raffle for the door prizes, and we'll do those toward the end of the evening or afternoon. So just put the second half of the ticket into whichever bucket you're interested in. That way you can win something you actually would want. We will do those drawings probably around 5. Good morning, good morning, good morning, everybody. I want to welcome you guys all to IndyPy Automate Conf. We'll get started here in about 5 minutes, so make sure you grab coffee, tea. There's plenty of donuts. I am not taking those home. You have to help me eat them all. There's just no way that sugar. I'm already getting a flush just thinking about all the sugar that's in those donuts. So please help me eat all the donuts. There's some yogurt and stuff out there on the main table. If you need anything whatsoever, please do not hesitate to ask me. You can ask Doug. My name is Calvin, by the way. I will be introducing and giving you guys a quick little remarks here in a moment. Like I said, we'll get started in about 5 minutes. So if you want to grab some more food, make sure you get your raffle tickets in over here on the bowls on this table. So there are 3 different prizes. I believe there's a PyCharm license. There is a book. What's the other prizes up there? Oh, No Starch Press ebook. And is that the Hitchhiker's Guide to Python? That Hitchhiker's Guide to Python, by the way, is signed by both authors of it. So it is a collector's item. I highly recommend that book to folks. Not normally in dead tree version, but because we did get them signed, we were able to give them away as some cool door prizes for some of our events. So again, if you need anything whatsoever, don't hesitate to ask me or Carol or Mary Beth, or there's numerous folks in the room who are here ready to help you and assist if you need anything. There are restrooms over here to your left, out that little door right there. There are also some restrooms out in the main area. And then if you need water or drinks or anything like that, we'll have drinks and coffee in this room, and rest of the drinks are in the back. We do also have, in addition to the IndyPy swag back there where Matt's sitting, you can purchase an IndyPy t-shirt. We have the snake oil t-shirt, the normal blue one. We also have, is there IndyPy scarves, Matt? Oh, okay. Make sure you put a scarf up there. We have our famous IndyPy scarves. I say they're famous because I can make that claim, and no one can refute it. So if you want one of these cool scarves, I get stopped all the time. People are like, "What team is that?" I'm like, "It's IndyPy." Let me tell you about IndyPy. Hold on, stop right here. There we go. Yeah, Matt's holding up the IndyPy scarves. They're $15. The t-shirts are $15. I think we have some socks left still. Those are $5. What? Oh, and one hat. I was wrong. I thought the hats were all sold out. There is. I'll auction that one off later, actually. So we'll make sure we get somebody to have that hat as a take home today. Again, we'll get started here in about, like I said, 5 minutes. So sit back, sit tight, and we'll get going soon. Good morning, everybody. I want to welcome you all to IndyPy Conf, the automated version, IndyPy Conf 2019. I was in a meeting yesterday, and we kind of go over like interesting things you learned, and someone had looked up what their first computer was. Luckily, this person was older than me, and so it actually made me feel really good about myself. But my first computer was an IBM PC with an Intel 8088 processor in it. I know many of you in the room may not even know what I'm talking about, but at that time I was like, man, what could this computer do for me? How could I have it like do my bidding, serve me in some way, automate some functionality for me? I was so excited when we had this computer. There wasn't even an internet then. I didn't have a modem. I didn't think there was a serial cord connected to any peripherals. It was just a box with a monitor and a keyboard, and we could make it play music. I had like some MIDI tunes that we could like play on it. I think there was a little circus game on there, and who remembers playing Rogue or NetHack or Dungeon? The text-based RPG. Yeah. So that was my idea of automation back in, I won't tell you what year, but fast forward to starting our company. So 6 Feet Up started in the year 1999, 20 years ago. 20 years ago, our idea of automation was I needed to set up a server, and I needed to be able to install the OS. So I had to go find a CD-ROM, or actually floppies maybe even at the time, boot it, possibly get on the network, and then if I wanted to have an Apache web server installed on that server, I started handcrafting my beautiful bespoke web server by grabbing the source code for Apache, downloading it into the source directory, typing configure with some crazy prefix and some custom options, and then I typed make, and then I crossed my fingers and I prayed that nothing would break. And if it all went successfully, I typed make install, and I had my system ready to serve web pages on the World Wide Web. Isn't that crazy? Maybe to some of you. I want to welcome you guys all to Devops Club. This is for everybody. And I don't know if you guys have seen the movie Fight Club, but it's almost as old as our company, 20 years as well. That movie came out ago. And if you recall, there are rules to DevOps Club. And I'm going to go over those with you guys today. But now that where we are today in our DevOps and automation journey, it's the public cloud. We have the ability now via REST APIs to spin up tens or hundreds or even thousands of instances of services, servers, databases, even serverless things to be able to accomplish all of our tasks and basically do our bidding as we go through our day-to-day work. We don't even think about the hardware that's sitting underneath what we actually used to have our physical hands on and put CD-ROMs into to actually produce a server that would do the work we need. So if we start talking about the rules of DevOps Club, obviously we have to have a certain number of rules. And if you guys remember, the first rule of DevOps Club is you don't log in to your servers. The second rule of DevOps Club is you do not log in to your servers. And why do we do this? Because anytime you log into a server, you're going to make a change. And you're going to make a change that's not documented. You're going to make a change that's going to be hard to reproduce. You're going to make a change that somebody else won't know you did and will try and undo for you, most likely, because it won't match what the expectation of that server or that service should be. So our first two rules is not logging into our servers so we can actually have consistency across our environments. Third rule of DevOps Club, if your deployment fails, you better be able to roll back. This is just good practice. We want to make sure that we can confidently release. We want to increase our ability, increase our speed, increase our velocity to release new code out to those servers. And the only way we can do that is with that absolute confidence that at any point in time, we can get back to where we were, or at least to a safe, well-known spot that keeps serving traffic. So if our deployment fails, we better be able to roll back. Fourth rule, all artifacts will be stored in source control. We want to have a trail that shows where we've been, where we're going, what changes have been made to a system, so we can audit it, We can detect it. We can test it. We can now enable our continuous integration environments to pull out the state of our systems and then test that they actually do end up in that expected state after the end of a test run. So every change we make into our systems can now deploy and test and validate, and we can be sure that we are going to mitigate or head off any kind of errors before we even get into a staging environment because our CI environment has tested it for us beforehand. Oh, another benefit of that rule, we know who did it, right? There's a name associated with that. You can put up like a wall of shame if you wanted in your office to see who broke the build. We can now do that at the systems level instead of just at our applications level. Fifth rule of DevOps Club, only one deployment at a time. We don't, as humans, don't multitask very well. So we shouldn't try and force our DevOps engineers or our process to do that as well. If we've got one product going out and one deployment at a time, we limit our risk and our exposure to errors from basically the only place they come from, right? The computers don't make mistakes. The humans tell the computers to make the mistakes. And so that's where we need to be. Sixth rule, one of my favorites. No one-offs and no special cases. So we're going to actually, throughout the day, we're going to have some great talks about automation. You can see some of the upcoming talks on the screen here. Our second speaker will be me. David couldn't make it, but I'm going to go over this one specifically, the no one-offs, no special cases. I've got some battle scars. Actually, probably Matt has more scars than I do from special cases and no one-offs, and making sure we can deploy consistent systems over and over and over again. This means no logging into those servers, no adding in third-party package repositories because it happens to have that one special version you may need. That third-party package repository, that maintainer may never be heard from again, and you're all of a sudden stuck at that old, vulnerable, buggy version of some software you thought was going to work for you just right then and there when you needed it right now. Seventh rule of deployment. Deployments will go on as long as they have to. We're going to see this thing through to the end. And if it takes a little longer than it should, we're going to make sure we allot that time to our engineers and to our club so we can actually get our work done. And the eighth and probably best rule, right? In the eighth and final rule, if it's your first night at DevOps Club, you're going to deploy to prod. This is actually what some companies do. I know there's organizations out there who are very, very skittish and hesitant on this, but I think if you can get a culture in your organization where it is normal that the day one you actually produce productive code and can move the needle, I think you're going to instill confidence in those new developers, and you'll be able to do this because you've done all the other rules up above. You have the ability to roll back if there is a failure. You will let it go on as long as it has to. You will let them learn from the experience. They do have permission to fail, knowing that there is a process in place to keep everything moving forward. So what's in store today? I'm really excited about the Automate conference. We were going to talk about some beautiful command line scripts. I do have a talk on YouTube about that. It's funny, in his description for David's talk about the Google Fire, he mentions Clint and Click, and I have a talk that combines both of those, which I love. So I'm actually kind of disappointed. I wanted to see his talk to see what his version of command line scripts written in Python using some cool frameworks looked like. But instead, you'll get me. I'm actually going to talk, if you guys have come to Indy AWS, I gave a talk about masters and minions. We're going to talk a little bit about Saltstack. That's actually where that slide came from with the rules of DevOps Club. So we're going to talk about that next. There's going to be some really cool stuff coming up about serverless. If you guys are interested in doing data profiling and cleaning, we've got talks about that. There's stuff about navigating the tricky world of forecasting. I think I saw Tom just walk in someplace. Oh, there he is right there. I'll call him out as he walks into Tom McGinnis, folks, ladies and gentlemen. We will have a talk on MicroPython. So if you're doing embedded work, Python is in all these awesome little places. And we're going to have an introduction to MicroPython. And then last but not least, what would a IndyPy conference be without talking about IoT, Python, and beer? So how we actually can automate and talk about beer with Python. And then we'll close out the day. And afterwards, it's not on the schedule, but we'll have a happy hour over at 6 Feet Up's office, which is just right around the corner. So if you guys want to join us from like 5:15 to 6 o'clock or 7, we'll open up the taps, and you guys can come on over and hang out at the office with us. Now, I wanted to go over a few more logistics. I did talk a little bit. There's restrooms over here to the left. There are Wi-Fi passwords on the tables out in front of you. We do have awesome sponsors. So I don't know if we want to put, do we have sponsor slides we can put up? Oh, well, we'll get the sponsor slides up there in a second. But I do want to thank our organizing sponsor. Again, my name is Calvin Hendricks Parker. I'm co-founder and CTO of 6 Feet Up. We are a Python and cloud expert consulting company. We are located right here in this business park in Launch. Oh, we were used to be in Launch Fishers, but we are now next door. I want to thank them for allowing us to use our resources to put together this conference. So if you need help, need anything at all, there's lots of people in the room who are part of our organizing team who are willing to help you. So Mary Beth, Doug, Matt, you probably met Carol as you got your name tag on the way in. We are actually, one of the things we try and help tech teams do is accelerate ahead and burn down their backlog. So if you have problems like that around Python and cloud, definitely come and talk to us. We'd be happy to chat about all your Python problems or Python challenges and exciting opportunities. We have been, like I mentioned, 20 years in business, and we are a woman-owned certified business. I want to also thank, let's see here, IndyPy. So IndyPy, being able to put on these conferences, our mission is to help grow Python usage in the Midwest through trainings and connecting Pythonistas. So I consider all of you part of my clan and my tribe, and I want to help all of you grow your Python skills here. And so IndyPy is definitely one of the many conduits that we do for that. We have our normal weekly or monthly events, second Tuesday of the month. We've been doing it now for 12 years. We have our Python beginner jams. We will have our right brain talks. We will have our pro talks. And then we have our new event that we started at the beginning of this year, the Python Bites, which is the fourth Tuesday of the month. We have a lunchtime event at the district tap, so that's brand new. So if you can't make the evening events on Tuesday, please join us at lunch for that event. And then we also have the Python conferences, IndyPy conferences. So you have the Automate conference that you're sitting here today. It used to be called Pythology. So if you guys remember coming to the Pythology conferences, this is the new name for the Pythology conferences, which is IndyPy conference. We will have the web conference coming up in June. Is that right? And then we have and PyData in October. So if you guys came last year for the PyData event, we will do that again this fall. The call for papers for the web conference is open right now. So if you would like to speak, we're looking for talks at all levels. So beginner, intro, or intermediate, expert, whether it's Flask, Pyramid, Django, Pyramid, Clone, some Tornado, some framework I've not even heard of. We would love to have you guys submit talks. If you go to papercall.io, you can search for IndyPy. You'll see our upcoming conferences. And I would love to have you all submit papers and speak at one of our conferences. We're also looking for speakers for our normal IndyPy mixers and IndyPy Bytes. You can actually sign up online through the indypy.org site to be a speaker at one of our normal meetings. We'd love to have you. Another announcement, there are raffled items over here on the table. So if you guys got a ticket, don't forget to put the other half of that ticket into one of the bowls. There is a year license for PyCharm Professional. There is a No Starch Press ebook. And then there's a signed copy of the Hitchhiker's Guide to Python over there. So that's the raffle. We are live streaming today. So if you have friends who can make it, there is a YouTube link. Did you post that up into? So I've given it to Mary Beth. We'll post it up in Twitter. So if you follow IndyPy on Twitter, you can actually share that link out to your friends. They should be hearing what we're hearing. We will have a couple breaks throughout the day. So there'll be a first break at 9:45. And during one of the breaks, we will have our e-gaming. So we brought in our Galaga machine in the back. I also have a Nintendo Switch hooked up here on the big stage. That will be live streamed on the internet. So if you want to show your stuff and do some awesome Mario Kart racing up here, we will be live streaming that out over the stream as well. And then there is a survey. So we need your feedback. We want to make these events as awesome as possible. We want to continue to grow them and make them better. So I think there is an electronic program guide that you guys should have gotten a link for when you signed up or registered. Or maybe when did you send that out? Wednesday. So you should have gotten an email Wednesday with an electronic program guide in it. That has a link in there. It's a bit.ly link for the Automate Survey 19. So please fill it out. Please let us know your feedback. We want to make these events as awesome as possible for you guys, and we can only do that with your feedback. All of the things we do have been based on feedback we've gotten from people in our community. Speaking of feedback, if you want to ask questions during any of the talks, we have a wireless microphone, so that way it gets onto the recording, it goes out to the live stream. If you are more comfortable and it's actually easier, you can go to .com on your mobile device or on your laptop and put in automate conf as the conference name you're at. The questions will pop up here so the speaker can see them, then the speaker will repeat them, that way they get on the recording. And you can also go there and upvote and downvote questions. So if you see a question up there that you wanted to ask yourself, make sure you upvote it, because that will make it pop to the top. So we make sure the important, most high priority questions get answered first. Any other logistics I'm forgetting? I'm certainly forgetting something. Did I cover everything? Oh, look, hello world. Yes, hello world. I will respond to that question with hello IndyPy. Thank you guys all for coming. So next up will be me. I'm going to give our Masters of Opinions talk on automating Saltstack. And so I will switch over real quick to my other laptop. I know. Well, unfortunately, the talk was written in deck set, and there's not a deck set for Ubuntu. Oop, hold on. I could totally automate this. Survey says yes. All right, awesome. Cool. Any questions from opening remarks before we get started? Awesome, other than hello world. I want to thank you guys all for having me. My name is Calvin Hendricks Parker. I am co-founder and CTO of 6 Feet Up. I'm here to talk to you today about how we can automate our infrastructure. You may have heard in that great keynote that just happened a few minutes ago about some of the rules of DevOps Club and some of the reasons you may want to do this. I'm going to give a little more in-depth talk on some of those items specifically. So again, if you have questions, make sure you throw them up on the Slido or raise your hand, and I'll make sure Mary Beth grabs the microphone and gets it over to you so that I can make this as interactive as possible. I do only have about a little less than half an hour, so we'll try and get through this as fast as possible. There we go. When it comes to servers, and as I mentioned before, there are certain things in life that should most certainly be handcrafted. Fine woodworking, jewelry. I mean, who doesn't love a fine piece of handcrafted jewelry? Everyone has something like that. And of course, my favorite handcrafted item would be beverages. I'm definitely a fan of beverages. If you've ever known me or been around me, I love all kinds of coffees, handcrafted cocktails, craft beers, whatever the case may be. These are things that most certainly should be handcrafted, but not your infrastructure. Bespoke is definitely not a word that we want to use when talking about our servers or our infrastructure that's running our applications. This should be a term reserved for clothing and not our servers that run our applications. The age of the handcrafted servers is over. Things like beautiful and unique snowflakes are not reproducible. A little bit of trivia here. The chances of a snowflake being exactly like another is 1 followed by 1 million trillion zeros. That's a 1 followed by 18 zeros. And the same thing holds true for your servers. The chances of reproducing that server once you have gone in and meddled with something, because it may be not you who did it, it may be somebody else who did it, it's nearly impossible to reproduce this use case over and over again. How many people have ever run into this where a server has been running for 5 years in the server closet, and next thing you know, you need to redeploy the app or refresh the hardware, and you cannot get that application to run on the new hardware? Raise your hands if you guys have been in that spot. Oh yeah, this is not uncommon. And that's why we're here today. We're going to talk about automation and orchestration. Things like pets should have very cute names because we love our pets. We want to, cherish them and hold them and pet them. Pets, are unique and we want to love them. And I said, we give them, funny names. you would never want to do bad things to your pet. You have to just to terminate your pet and spin up a new pet, right? Unlike that, cattle typically have members, and they help provide us with food. And we don't typically think of them as having a name or a cute face. They do, but this is kind of the world of DevOps, where we want to think about our servers not as pets with cute names, but as cattle and numbers, and they can be replaced. If one gets sick, you know what? We walk her off the side, and she can retire off in the pasture over there. We don't care because another one's going to step in and replace that nice server for us and actually continue to do our work. If you have one single email server and that email server has a cute name, you're going to work really hard to keep that server alive. But if that server just has a number, and if you terminate that server, the auto scaling group just spins up another one right in its place, you don't care. The data is persisted correctly in some manner that any server, any instance can spin up, any image can now take its place and be being a fully functioning and operational nearly instantaneously if it's done right. So now we're in this world of DevOps, and many non-cloud native applications have the ability to be deployed in a cloud native tool. So you can actually take these applications that are more legacy style and deploy them in a way that would allow us to fulfill our need of running in a more cloud native operation. So how do we take this beautiful handcrafted bare metal server running our application and translate into the cloud? Now, I have a couple stories about that. So I won't go over this again because you guys just saw this, but it does have to do with our rules of DevOps. There is, I kind of took a little bit of this from a Hacker News post. There is a link in the presentation. The presentation is actually online in IndyPy GitHub repository. If you want to go check out the Hacker News post that kind of gave me the inspiration for this. There actually is another interesting take on being a welcoming DevOps club. We want to make sure that we're not just this exclusive club, kind of like it was in the movie. I want to be opening and welcoming to all. So there's actually another link in this slide, the presenter notes to Bridget Kromhut's post on the subject of being a welcoming DevOps team. So keep that in mind as you read through these rules. So we'll talk about the tools. We're going to talk today about a couple tools that we've used to get a couple of our projects up and running. What's awesome about being in the Python community, Python has many tools that are available to us to do this, such as Saltstack and the AWS Bot 03 library. So we're going to talk a bit about Amazon Web Services and how we've automated it with Saltstack and Bot 03. So the main story here is going to be going from the closet to the cloud. Again, I'll raise hands. How many people have actually had their servers stored in a literal closet? Yeah, we started there. I mean, there were coats on top and the servers down below. There's literally a coat closet where we had servers. This is pre-20 years ago, I think, but that's how it started, right? We did a project, though, recently with the College of Engineering at Notre Dame. And they did have a single server in a closet on the campus that we deployed for them back in 2011. Luck for them, in 2016, the whole university-wide said, we are moving into the public cloud. So they had an initiative to get everything up into the public cloud. So the campus-wide, they needed to move all applications, no matter what they were, up into the public cloud. So this is a perfect opportunity to take an aging single server hosting their site, improve the performance, improve the resilience, and also make it more resilient against potential failure. So moving them up into the public cloud this way. What they had was a single server monolith, kind of standard, the web servers on the same server as the database servers, on the same server as the proxy server, as the same server as the caching server, as the same server as the actual application that's running the code. So one single instance running everything, which means if that one single instance goes away, that was storing all the data, that was delivering all the pages, that had one single connection to the internet. They had terrible uptime, unfortunately. Nothing to do with the quality of what we delivered as far as the application. It's just that it was delivered in a more legacy fashion, not built cloud native. We want to take this single server monolith and move it into a more cloud native application without having to recode the whole application. we want to be able to take advantage of the services that Amazon gives you, for example, like CloudFront for a CDN. We want to be able to use an ELB, the Elastic Load Balancers, to be able to load balance across multiple application servers in case there was a failure of one of our beautiful cattle. That another one can just stand in its place. These servers, the AZ1, AZ2 servers, contain zero persistent data that actually is used in the delivery of the application. They can go away at any point in time. Another one can be spun up in its place with the exact same image, and within seconds, maybe under a minute, we can actually have our cluster back to full strength, or can scale up now. We have the ability to use that elastic capability of Amazon to scale up our application, even though our application was never written in this cloud-native way. Now, the data gets stored in more building blocks provided by Amazon, such tools such as EFS, their Elastic File System, and then using RDS, their database service, we can now have automatic replication between multiple availability zones, and then we can actually have an offsite replication to a whole nother region inside of Amazon. So we have the AZ1 and AZ2 all running in one region, so in 2 different data centers in that region, but now we have an offsite backup via the S3 backup, which can replicate globally as well over a software lifecycle or storage lifecycle events. And now the RDS data can be replicated into the other region. So spinning up in another region is just as simple as taking our automation, running against that, and going live. But how do we make it repeatable? That's where our automation comes into play. Did anybody go to Purdue? Who's a boiler? Go Boilers. Whoever went to the Rube Goldberg competition while you were at Purdue? I didn't, unfortunately. I wish I would have gone. You went? It would have been awesome. So this is the Rube Goldberg cartoon that competition is named after. So we're going to basically enter into Saltstack and Bot 03. How can we take and transform code into infrastructure so we can actually build and redeploy our environments as needed? We want the end goal of our application to be reproducible and have a command and control infrastructure, so if we needed to spin up, for example, another testing instance or staging instance or performance instance, it's a matter of telling the master. In this case, we're going to have a salt master. You can see the salt master here, and it's going to be able to spin up any n number of instances of our application into different VPCs inside that region, or we can actually spin up another master in another region and do the same thing over in some other region. So the goal being, get a control VPC up and running, and then deploy our application servers, all of our cloud resources such as the CloudFront, the ELBs, the EFS, the RDS, all the TLAs can be deployed into this system without any one single person logging into a console and clicking at any one bit. Because if you go back to the first rule of Devops Club, we don't log into servers. That should almost be equally as true as we don't log into the Amazon Web Console and click around, because that could be nearly as destructive as producing a beautiful, unique server. So we have a bit of a chicken and egg problem. To get this level of automation up and running inside the cloud, we need to get Saltstack deployed someplace where it can be usable. So what we do is use just the plain, straight up Python and Bot 03 library. And with a couple lines of code, you can actually create in this case, we're creating that control VPC where we'll run our Salt Master. And then from there, we can now launch the Salt Master, which will then in turn create all the other cloud resources for us. Because Salt has the capability to build AWS native tooling, such as the CloudFront instance, the ELBs, and then spin up the availability zones with our EC2 instances in it. So the first thing we have to do is actually use probably about a 40, 50 line Python script to bootstrap the whole environment. And this can be done as long as you have your API keys on your local system. This can be done from your local system without ever logging into the web console whatsoever. Oh, quick little side note. Because you do have API keys, and no one wants to be the next headline on Hacker News, make sure you store those keys securely, please. I do not want to see anybody having plain text versions of your keys on your laptops at any point in time. I recommend using LastPass. It's kind of a poor man's secret store. We use LPathInv, so it allows us to actually insert the credentials into the environment for us, so as environment variables, just like this. So if I run this command from my command line, it will actually go to my LastPass query for an item named AWS SFU Calvin, and then take the secret and key and put it into environment variables in this shell only. And then when I close that shell, those credentials are no longer on my system in memory. And they were never on my system on the disk, which is the most important part. So you can see here, these are obviously not real keys. You can try them, I don't know if they'll do anything. But that's what you get when you use a tool like LPassM to basically manage your secrets for you. So continuing on, we will now take and build up our EC2 instance for the control. This is all about building the control VPC. I'll kind of skip over that bit, because really what we care about is getting Saltstack running. And these slides are all online for us, so if you want to check it out later, you can. Saltstack is an event-driven orchestration platform written in Python. A lot of people think it's just a configuration management platform, but it actually is much more. It can react, it can watch for conditions, it can then spin up in reaction to those conditions, and it can actually do all of your orchestration. So if you actually want to be able to script all of your releases, so for example, with a zero downtime release, and you want to be able to automate and iterate over all of your application servers in a controlled fashion, ensuring that as one goes down, it's not in a load balancer, the next one comes up, you ensure that the site and pages are ready to load. Saltstack handles all those things. And one of the things that actually got me interested in Saltstack was the remote execution environment. I can now query interactively my whole cloud set of resources, and Saltstack can give me back information about whatever hardware is running, what hypervisors are running, what applications are deployed, what versions of software are installed. I can basically interrogate the whole environment using Saltstack, using the execution piece. The next most powerful thing is that event-driven orchestration. If a minion, so Salt uses master minions. If a minion goes down, I can react to it by spinning up a replacement, or I can, if I detect load has gone, too high, for example, if I'm using like Graphene or like some kind of monitoring software to watch for traffic or load on the system, I can have it react in response to that. It able to act in an agent or agentless operation. It fully supports all the major cloud operators out there. So if you're not using AWS, you're using Azure, it has built-in support for that as well. And then most important, I guess next most importantly, is speed and scalability. It has the ability to scale across thousands of servers because it's actually using 0MQ behind the scenes. So it actually produces all the results in parallel as it deploys all your actions out to the servers. And this is kind of comparable to like a Chef and Puppet. It also incorporates orchestration pieces that you might be using Fabric for, and then tools like Terraform to do cloud provisioning. They're all kind of bundled into one inside of Saltstack. Now I mentioned it can run in a masterless or with a master, but no one wants to be masterless. If you know the minions, they are very sad when they do not have their master to be around. So we want to make sure we run, I like running with the masters and minions. That way you have happy minions. And at this point we can orchestrate. Once we have that control VPC up and running and ready to go, every aspect of our infrastructure is defined via salt pillars and states. So states are kind of the template or the stamp that allows us to stamp out different functions or pieces of our infrastructure. The pillars are all the variables we basically stuff into those stamps. So if I've got a production environment with this database username and password, and I got a staging environment with a different username and password because I'm following best security practices, Salt can manage that and be aware of our various environments and give us just the data for that environment or the other environment. So in this case, we're running the prod state up here on top. You can see it's got a pillar in equal prod at the back. And then the second one, we can build a test environment by running the exact same command, but giving it the test environment, and it will now spin up all the infrastructure for our testing environment. So that original picture we were looking at of a prod VPC and a test VPC, you just saw the whole commands to build both those environments all the way to delivering web pages for the application. It was just those two commands for building both environments all at once, which is nice. And now in front of all the VPC bits, we get all the CloudFront ELB, and behind that we have all of our storage with our EFS and RDS. And we can take this further. So now we've built up the infrastructure and deployed our initial application. We can actually deploy code releases. I won't go too deep into that because I want to make sure we keep on time here, and I want to respect everyone's breaks. But we can go towards zero downtime releases. If you guys are familiar with Python, have ever messed with the Jinja templating language, Saltstack leverages that Jinja templating language. It allows us to do things like make loops. So we can actually loop over every app in some defined set of app servers, which can be dynamically defined out of the environment due to that remote execution. It can actually gather information and figure out what the app servers are, and then loop over to those app servers. For example, stopping varnish to take it out of the load balancer, getting prepared for the release by pulling the latest code to pulling or stopping instances, pulling the latest code to the latest app server. And if you have, here's an example, pulling out the code, and there are other manual operations that would need to happen as part of your code release. For example, you need to run grunt or gulp to compile your CSS and JavaScripts. Salt takes care of that as well. So no human forgets any part of the steps. We also can make sure we can have an easy way to roll back. You can also provide, in our case, we give the ability to specify a specific branch for the release. So if you actually wanted to roll back to the previous tag, you can specify that with that pillar equal blah, 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 specify what branch you want to roll back to or what tag you want to roll back to or what commit you want to roll back to. And we now have a way of rolling back out of that failed release in case something went bad. And if something did go bad, Salt doesn't continue destroying our environment and trampling it like any other good DevOps tool might. Salt will stop at that point, not put the server back into the load balancer. You can then at that point diagnose and debug and fix any issues that may have come up. Oh, here's the example handling release tasks. So in our case, we run Plone, which uses build out, kind of like a superpowered make tool. And then we can run and install, like for example, npm installing gulp, and then running our gulp tasks to ensure that the new CSS and JavaScript gets compiled. And it's not just for releases. We actually can do automations, for example, bringing production data back into other environments. It's a one command line. It's usually not as easy as dump a database, load a database. Usually there's other artifacts that come along with that. For example, in our case, we have the blob storage or the large files that go along with the content management system. We need to make sure those are in sync as well. And so we can manage that process all in once with grabbing production data, for example. That's really small, and I don't expect anyone to be able to read that, I promise. But if you go look at the code online, you'll see here we're not only stopping database servers, stopping instances, dumping the databases, syncing the blob storages from one environment to another. There's probably 20, 25 steps involved in getting data from one environment to another environment. Good luck getting a human to do it twice exactly the same way in a row. Luckily, Salt can do it for us that way as well. I'm going to skip through this. I talked about Cloud Custodian a bit in this talk, kind of saving money and automating the cloud from events. So you can actually use Cloud Custodian to do things like turn off dev instances after hours. You can immediately save 60% or more on your AWS bill just by turning off your dev instances the other 18 hours of the day you're not using them. It sounds too easy, right? It's all magical because I sound confident about it, right? It actually was a bumpy road. There are, again, the rules. Satisfying the rules for no special cases was tricky. In our case, for our application to be able to deploy it, we needed specific versions of HA proxy, or we needed specific versions of helper applications like WV to do document conversion. And the Amazon Linux AMIs, they don't always prepare us for the right versions of those things. So you're going to have to find either a set of distributions or maintain packaging for the versions of those applications that you would need. So when you come to the who's read the ZenPython? Who's aware of the ZenPython? If you're not aware of the ZenPython, even if you are aware of the ZenPython, I recommend to everyone, print it out, frame it, put it in your bathroom, and read it while you brush your teeth every day, especially you 1150 folks. This is a key thing to have in mind. But there should be one, and preferably only one, obvious way to do it, although it may not be obvious to you unless you're Dutch. So we had to find the one way to get the right versions of the applications out there for us. These are actual commit messages, I think, from Matt from earlier this year or last year. So we initially tried to launch on Amazon Linux. We figured we're on Linux or on Amazon. We might as well use their version of Linux. It must be optimized for their platform. It must work better because it's Amazon Linux. Well, we ended up refactoring to CentOS. We're like, well, let's stay with Linux. We'll stay on CentOS. Well, we ended up refactoring for FreeBSD because FreeBSD actually had the most current versions of the packages in their packaging system and was the one we're actually the most comfortable with. We were really only trying to go Linux in this case so we could kind of stay mainstream. But in the end, FreeBSD ended up being the better option for us. So other recommendations for you guys, I would recommend a continuous integration strategy so you can test your infrastructure with tools. I'd mentioned this before in the keynote that you can actually now treat your whole infrastructure as another code artifact, deploy it into your continuous integration environment, test it, get feedback, red, green, whether it's broken or whether it's working, and actually know before you go to release your next prod release whether things are broken. This is really important on the public cloud providers because they are an ever-shifting environment. There are things always changing out underneath you. The documentation for AWS is notoriously always slightly out of date, and there's new things happening and there's APIs changing. So having that CI environment available to you will help you detect those changes and breakages before you reaches your production environment. You can also create your own tools with Auto3 very easily. So for example, if you need to trace requests through the cloud, going from CloudFront to ELB to your EC2 instances can be tricky to figure out where things are going wrong or where things are messing up. So we created a quick little tool for pulling out CloudFront logs and being able to query based on there's basically headers inside each page. You can basically insert that header, search for those entries, and kind of trace it through the infrastructure to see where your requests went wrong. Especially with caching, it's difficult to debug when you've got things that can be cached at different layers and you're unsure whether it's actually coming back and hitting your application or not. Are we living the dream? I would say yes. I think we're definitely living the dream. We've taken a non-cloud native application and we have deployed it in a much more cloud native way. So that makes me very, very happy. Thank you very much. If you have questions, actually, there's a question up here. We once took pride in long uptimes. I know this for sure. We've transitioned to chasing the least uptime. Outside of serverless infrastructures, does anyone enforce a max uptime? I would never require or enforce a max uptime. Matt, what's the longest one of our servers stayed alive? Matt was in high school, I think, when this server turned on and started working for us for years before we turned it off. 6.5 years. I'm not proud of that number because that means there were 6.5 years of bugs, security issues, problems. I mean, luckily the infrastructure was solid and nothing ever happened because of other practices that were along the way. But that's just another attack vector or another area of issue that could pop up. So I would not enforce max uptime. Does anyone in the room enforce max uptime? Good. Again, you should not be worried. You guys have heard of this company called Netflix, right? We Netflix and chill. Netflix has open sourced a tool called the Chaos Monkey. And the Chaos Monkey is exactly that. They unleash it on their AWS, and it just randomly turns off things here and there. Their environment has to be resilient so that the Chaos Monkey can hit any part of that environment, and everything stays live, and everyone can still watch their movies. So Salt versus other products like Chef or Terraform, that one's an easy one, mostly because Salt offers a remote execution, and Salt offers event-driven orchestration. The other tools don't necessarily have that. They are more specialized into configuration management, or Terraform more in the management of infrastructure assets. So a lot of those pieces from both those tools, plus then the remote execution and the event-driven bit. It's really cool. I mean, that 0MQ bus that it uses to do all of its work also allows it to respond to any messages coming from the minion back to the master. And so a minion could be reporting some activity, someone logged in. It can trip and actually cause something to happen in a completely different part of the infrastructure. Any questions?
I'm just curious, how many people use Saltstack? Do you guys use Saltstack in your company?
Talk to me. I would love to talk to you about Saltstack.
Well, what do you guys use? Or are you not using a product to do this automation? And are you interested in learning how to use Saltstack?
Who's using Puppet? Anybody using Puppet? Ansible. Chef. Oh boy, we got a lot of people to talk to. Okay. Terraform. All right, cool. Yeah. Well, I kind of feel like Terraform is a complementary technology. Actually, we use Terraform as well. The cloud bits, because of AWS's rapidly changing APIs, have been tricky for them to keep up with in the other third-party tools, even Terraform. Terraform seems to be the most up-to-date with all the APIs, so I recommend that for folks if you're going to dive in and do infrastructure-related things. That's my Twitter. That's my email. I am not a hard person to find, and I love talking. So please come find me and talk to me. Thank you all. And again, enjoy your day here. If there's any questions or anything we can do to make it better, I would love to do that. We have Igor. Where's Igor? He was sitting, there he is right here. He's up next, talking to us about, he's doing serverless, right? Yes, I'm excited about that. You're one of my talks I said I'm not going to miss. Going to see it.
And
Cool.
we have way too many donuts left out there.
Oh,
I don't want them coming back to my office, so please go get another donut.
all right. So you heard the man. There's lots of donuts. We've got about, what time is it now? We got about a 10-minute break. So I'm doing a little 5 minutes over. So 10-minute break. Come right back here and join us for Igor's talk on serverless. We'll see you in a few. What's that? Oh, okay. We'll get started here in about 2 minutes with Igor's talk. So I'll let you guys all get one last coffee, get one last water, and come grab a seat. And we'll start in about 2 minutes. And don't forget tonight, after the closing comments, we will have a happy hour over the 6UF office. So if you guys want to join us, we've got 2 40-rated beers on tap. We've got soft drinks, waters, whiskeys, wine, whatever you like. Come hang out. It's a casual for sure, a good end of the day. All right, everybody, I want to welcome you guys back to our IndyPy Automate Conf 2019. We will continue today. We've got Igor is going to talk to us about mobile APIs with Python and Lambda for serverless. So I will let Igor take it away.
Okay. Morning. My name is Igor and work at Devops Diagnostics. Just down the street. And the last couple of years, been working mostly in connecting medical devices to the cloud, using a phone app, and working with a lot of designing the APIs. So today's talk, I'll just go through a very simple example of using the serverless in terms of computing framework, but also the serverless toolkit, the command line toolkit that lets us orchestrate deploying the serverless. And just very simple example. But first, I would like to get to know a little bit the audience. So who is familiar with the serverless? Okay. API gateway, Amazon API gateway, the Lambda. Okay, so if I say something incorrect, please let me know. Anyways, the serverless is a way to share responsibility between your cloud provider. We work with Amazon quite a bit, so I do a lot of examples for Amazon. But the idea of serverless as a toolkit is to be independent from the provider. So bear with me if I just use a lot of Amazon terminology, but really the idea is to be a little platform independent, but still command line. And the serverless is shared responsibility between your cloud provider and you. So in case of typical EC2, you spin your virtual box and you are responsible for whatever you put on it, install, maintain, security, everything else, right? Managed frameworks such as the RDS, Relational Data Service, they actually let you pick the platform like Oracle, Microsoft, and then you just manage, but they take care of the updates. So it's a little bit less of responsibility on your side, more responsibility on your cloud provider. The idea with serverless as a computing, idea was to give a lot more responsibility to the cloud provider and let you to develop your, application. But you have less of a choice. Let's say with Amazon, we have for relational database, we have Dynamodb. Who is familiar with Dynamodb? We have Lambda available with certain languages, such as Python, and, JavaScript, and so on. We do get API gateway to manage our APIs, and it's our responsibility to link it together, to orchestrate, deploying these bits and pieces of puzzle. And there's a lot of responsibility on Amazon to make it running. We don't really care about servers. We do pick the regions and so on. But so there is just a lot more responsibility on your cloud provider, and that's what we mean by serverless. There is also serverless as a the platform available from Amazon, from Azure, from Google Cloud. They call it different things. They call it Lambda on AWS. They use Azure functions or cloud functions from Google. And the idea of the serverless as a toolkit, you go to serverless.com. The toolkit abstracts a little bit, and I think it's two kinds of abstractions: abstraction from your cloud provider, but also abstraction for a developer. Because a lot of developers, they have development mindset. I would like to work with the code. I don't want to be bothered by DevOps stuff. The servers, networks, and so on. So a lot of syntax is tailored towards developers. So me as a developer, I can manage my source code. I can manage my Python for the Lambdas, but I can also manage deployment of this Lambda and link it to API gateway and managing everything from the client and be able to source control, be able to modify stuff on the fly and not really worry too much about operations. Don't worry about calling IT to deploy something for me. So really the idea behind the serverless as a toolkit is building serverless apps, building APIs, automation. It's not for everything. It really works well for certain things, like building mobile APIs is one of the examples I want to go through, and really focus on business logic. So as a developer, I want to really focus on my Python code. I don't want to be bothered by other stuff. It's open source, but it's also available as an enterprise version and should be provider agnostic. But the way it works, you write your serverless YAML file, and then under the scenes, it's still going to use the CloudFormation, for example. If I target Amazon, it's still going to use CloudFormation to deploy my Lambdas and so on. So how do I set it up? I go to serverless.com, and it's using Node.js, so I have to use npm install serverless as a framework. Then one time I'll go to my Amazon Management Console or ask my IT to get me the user access for my framework. So I have to get the access key. Then I configure the serverless access one time from the command line, and I create a profile. In my case, all the credentials are going to be hidden, and they are going to be under IndyPy talk as the profile name. So in my code, I won't be using my credentials for Amazon directly. I'll just be using reference, and it's all taken care of. And then you may probably use different way to protect those credentials on your client, but definitely you'll not see it anywhere in your code. When you successfully installed serverless, it shows up as SLS command on your command line. And you say SLS, it gives you all kinds of options. And some of them, configure the credentials, just did. Install your package, deploy function, which gives you just option to deploy just one function. Then you can look at the logs, so you don't have to go to your CloudWatch in a console. You can actually, from command line, you can pull the logs for the function. You can remove your stack, which is what we want. We don't want to be attached to it. We want it to be a number, not a name. So you should be very comfortable removing your whole stack and starting from the zero when you make modifications. That's kind of the idea of orchestration from command line. There's a lot of plugins. So when we say this is provider independent, to an extent, sometimes there's Amazon specific functionality where I have to grab the plugin that's very specific to Amazon, right? So it's not 100% agnostic, but to an extent, you have to know where you want to be. The example I want to go through will be building a very simple mobile application, create data store, create Python code for my Lambdas, and use the API gateway to publish my APIs, RESTful APIs. And then I'll build, or I'll get SDK so I can build my mobile app. And the app is very simple. It's called Pydia app. So if I have a Python idea, I'm gonna type it in my phone and save it in my cloud. It's gonna capture the location, so coordinates. So next time I'm reviewing my ideas, I know where I was. What was I doing when I get these ideas? So that's kind of the very simple, application. First thing, first interface that you will encounter when you're developing a mobile application would be the Amazon API gateway, which is the glue that glues together the client with APIs, but then hooks up to your other components like AWS Lambda, and then the database is DynamoDB and so on. So this is the Amazon way to describe what the API gateway is. It's really just the doors into your cloud service. So first thing I'm going to create is going to be HTTPS endpoint that lets me create my idea. So it's gonna be, I'm gonna post idea. It's gonna store it in my database. Very simple. It'll be my domain. You can come up with your own /Pydia, and I'm gonna post some JSON to it, and it's gonna access gateway endpoint. It's gonna integrate with my Lambda function written in Python, and it's going to use DynamoDB Python library to access DynamoDB. So it's all Pythonic. And then I'm going to use CloudWatch to debug, because you want to know, something goes wrong, you want to be able to reproduce your error. The Python, enabling the Python to work with serverless, you need to get your first plugin. It's the plugin that's actually is agnostic to the provider, but what it does, it collects Python requirements. So all the libraries that you reference is going to collect it, and it's going to deploy it with your lambdas. So it's all automates. It looks for your dependencies, it packages it, and it deploys it to your lambda, function. And one thing actually you actually need for this to work, you need Docker, because what it's going to do is going to create a clean Linux Docker image, and it's going to collect these dependencies inside Docker, really independent from your environment, and it's going to zip it up, and it's going to send it to CloudFormation, and it's going to deploy that. So it's another requirement is the Docker. But once you're set up, installing the Python plugin, essentially what you do, SLS deploy, you go through your serverless file, send it up, SLS remove, destroys the stack. So you don't have to ever go to your management console to do anything. The choice of, so these are my project files. So it's gonna grow a little bit as we speak. But your first thing you're gonna edit is your requirements.txt file, and then you just say, I'm depending on DynamoDB. This is my version. I don't need to deploy Boto3 or Boto4 because it's already available. But I believe under the hood, the DynamoDB is going to use those to access your Dynamo database. The choice, Boto3 versus Dynamo. Dynamo is kind of more Pythonic, it's model-based. So you really create your model. You create a class that represents your data, and you're just going to work directly with that model. You don't have to do too many commands to save data, retrieve data, find something. It's kind of easy syntax. So, and also, I would like to demonstrate the dependencies I need. So it's kind of a good example. The model that I'm creating essentially is going to have some unique key for my idea, description of the idea, and location, and it's going to timestamp on the server. And location is, name of location, latitude, longitude. So it's kind of very simple. So I create my model in the Python file, that uses, the DynamoDB model class and extends it. There's some few things you need to do to iterate over the attributes and so on, but very simple. And then the Python function to create the record, again, very simple. The API gateway is going to send all the path attributes to my function, and I'm just going to process it, get the JavaScript that's posted to me, go through it, create instance of my model class, and save it. So it's very simple. Serverless YAML is the file that glues this together. So this is your deployment file that tells you what to use from your cloud provider, what components. In my case, I want to say, my provider is AWS versus Google versus Azure. Runtime, I would like to use my lambdas. The profile is my authentication, and then I deploy my region and stage. Stage is you can deploy various stages of your APIs. Development, production, test, whatever. It's you can manage your different API versions this way. Also, what I need, well, I need to name my plugins. So one plugin I already installed is the Python requirements plugin. The Python requirements plugin essentially, I'm going to say Dockerize. It means it will use Docker to package my dependencies. And then functions. So this section of your YAML file describes all the lambdas I'm deploying, and it's very straightforward. I'm using create function, which is this function here. The handler is going to be my API, HTTP. The path is the /PyDia. The post is a method. Across origin and request scripting, you have to say true for the local APIs because it's accessing from different domain. And that's it. So this is really all into it. And I actually I need to also create DynamoDB table. All I'm saying is what is my index built on in Dynamo and SLS deploy. So a few things deploy. It tells me I created this endpoint for you. And since I didn't set up my own domain, it's going to use just Amazon, and it gives you some unique key here in the path, so it's kind of differentiated. And it tells me I created one Lambda function for you. And that's it. I can tell you my tool, and I can start accessing this API. And I'm using the Insomnia tool for just testing it. Essentially, I'm going to create one instance of my idea, attend the IndyPy conference, and I was climbing Mount Everest when I was thinking about it, and it's gonna store it in my, and it's gonna timestamp, so create a key, and it's gonna tell me I created it this time and was updated this. So it's very simple test. So I was up and running with my mobile API in a quite small amount of code, and I didn't have to do anything on the Amazon console. Everything's going live. And then how does it look? So really, if you actually do go to the console to see what happens, which is sometimes good. So your gateway essentially created the post on /pedia. It integrated my Lambda. So there's method request, integration request. It's going to do Lambda proxy. Lambda proxy means it's passing the whatever JSON's coming in. And then my response, it describes what's coming back. And that's it. It shows you kind of nice. Yeah, it's hooked up to the API gateway. It's hooked up to CloudWatch. To get the CloudWatch to work, you actually have to set your permissions. So one caveat, when you create the credentials that are going to be used from command line, you have to give them all the permission they need to deploy all these pieces. And then actually, you can go to Lambda and see your Python code here, but you shouldn't really edit here. That's why the whole idea is run it from the client, push it, automate, right, everything. And then, but you can see actually all your dependencies here and everything. So it's kind of user-friendly. And actually, you can see the Dynamodb table, and actually one item I created in the table. So, and now I'm going to destroy everything. So remove the stack. I played with it. No name, just a number, and get rid of it because I'm going to add some more functionality now. So I'm going to add list, get, update, and delete. So the idea is to get a list of all ideas and a couple other methods that are going to use the key to retrieve, get the one, update the one, and delete the one. So I'm going to have full API so I can do all the operations. And then each of them has corresponding Python function, the list function, get function, update function, delete function. These are using path parameter. So you actually have to put your key or the unique ID on your path to do the rest of the operations. And I think that's it. So the change in the code, I created a couple more Python functions, very simple ones. Like if you use the Dynamodb, the scan gives you all the items. The get, you can just find it by the key that's on the path. Update, kind of same thing. It finds it, it sees anything changed, and it'll overwrite the item. And then delete. It's pretty straightforward as well. And then my serverless file, the serverless file, I had to add a couple more functions. So create was already there, which was my original one, right? And then a list, which gets me a list of all the elements. Essentially, I'm saying yes, there is a path, and I'm using get for method to get it, and it links to this function here, the PyDia list function in my code. Then so this is a list for the get, just one of them. I have to say yes, there is a path parameter, the PyDia key that's going to be passed to my Lambda function. And then similarly for update and for delete, I have the path parameters. But otherwise, it's pretty straightforward. You have to put your method and then path parameters. And again, SLS deploy. And I see I actually have now 5 endpoints available to me and 5 corresponding Python functions. And again, I can use my tool to this is give me the list. I can get just the one, right? I can update, so I can change something here and update, and I can delete, and we have a bug here. So I did it on purpose, so I can demonstrate some of the other features. So interesting thing, when you use the gateway, it doesn't really tell you much what your problem is. It tells you bad gateway, okay? Yeah, anyway, I'm assuming it's a bug. because I didn't write any of that. So normally you can go to your CloudWatch logs and see what happened. Oh, I misspelled my code. I put a key, idea key was misspelled. That's why it's failing. It doesn't find the path parameter of the name. Nice thing about the serverless, I can actually do the same thing from command line. Actually, I can say SLS logs for the function delete. It gets it from the CloudWatch, so I don't have to, tinker with my console, go there, do some damage. I can look at it from the command line. I can fix it. So I fix the misspelling, and now I just want to deploy one function. So I don't want to do the whole stack recreation. So you can essentially do SLS deploy function and then just put function name corresponding to your YAML file. It'll just grab that section of the YAML and redeploy it. So you don't have to redeploy the whole stack. So this is kind of a demonstration, and we fixed it, and it works now. So I was able to delete the, the record from the database. So a few things about securing the API, because right now it was pretty much open. So fairly simple way to secure your API or make it private. It's not secure because still I need to worry about authentication and credentials and everything else, but making it private so it's only accessible to clients that I will share the key with. So you will essentially create API key. API key is passed in a message header as a XAPI key parameter, and it will essentially fail if it doesn't find it, and the key is cryptographically strong enough. Very easy to do with your serverless framework. Essentially, what you say in your provider, create the API key for me. So you don't really type the key in. You don't decide what it's going to be, but you say, I need the API key, give it a name, and when you deploy, it actually is going to create a key and give it to you. You can actually decide not to even show it in your command line output. It can write it in a file, so you can secure it properly. And really, for the endpoints, the only thing you add is the private true. It means it will require the API key that I specified. So that's it. So I just go to edit my sections for create list get. And then when I do SLS deploy, and now I see one more item here. And this is obsolete. I mean, it doesn't work, but you can try. But the idea is you want to protect this, secure, and only share it with the clients that need to have access to the API. And then again, I have all the same endpoints here available, and it's the same functions. But I was able to redeploy the stack again. And really, it takes, depending on your code, it depends. It takes a minute or two. So it's quite friendly too. And then, anytime I want to use my endpoints now, I have to actually create a path parameter here, pass the API key. Otherwise, you get unauthorized response. So that's one thing that I recommended is, to secure your API. And then what, we would like to develop mobile application, it will be really nice to get some kind of SDK directly from my API gateway, so I can plug it into my iOS application and don't worry about accessing the API. So it's available. There is few things you need to do to start developing this app. Essentially, right now I was able to define the API in my serverless file, all the operations. What I need to do, I need to actually tell the API gateway what kind of data I'm passing, because until now there was no information about the JSON that's coming across. So I actually have to define a model of my request and response in terms of JSON schema, the schema for what's coming in the body, and JSON schema for what's coming out as a response. Let's see if I get the list. I need to define a schema for listing of all the elements. So that's additional task, and then I will be able to use API gateway and tell create SDK for me in whatever language I decide to. In this case, I like to use Swift for iOS, for example. So again, I need to add a few more things in my project. One of them would be the schema for the request. So essentially, I describe here's what's coming in terms of JSON schema. And as a response, some of the methods, let's say the list returns a list of items. So I need to describe also JSON schema for list. Again, in this case, this particular functionality is very Amazon specific. So Amazon API Gateway has this feature. So I actually have to download the AWS specific plugin. So it's not generic plugin. This only works with AWS, right? So now you start seeing it's not perfect for everything. So I need to actually deploy the serverless AWS model plugin that lets me define my models and tie them to my function definitions. So again, I need to install the plugin. It was installed successfully. And then I need to declare one more plugin in my serverless YAML file. And I need to define the model. So essentially, new section called models. And I had two models. One is the PyDia model, which is the model of the request, so the body of the request that's coming in, and the list model, so the response, right? And I need to assign this model to all the functions. So a function create actually request and response. So when I send it to my endpoint, I send the JSON, but it's also responding to it. It says 200 or something. Yeah, it says 200 response. Also responds with this, the JSON. So I need to do it for all of them. For list, I'm actually sending no model on the request, but the response give me the list of items. So I need to just describe this for each of them. For the get, I'm getting, I'm sending the. I'm just receiving the one instance, not the list, but just one. I'm not sending anything. For update, actually, I'm doing both. I'm sending one, and I'm receiving one. And for delete, again, I'm not using anything. So again, I remove the stack and redeploy. And then nothing changed. I still have 5 endpoints. And the how it looks in the API gateway, there is you see all my operations here now. The API gateway has a models section. So in this case, my 2 models were created, and you can do this by hand again, but we want to avoid that. So the you tell API gateway, I'm going to use iOS Swift, and actually this can be also automated from command line, so you can actually get your SDK to your client automatically. Then for iOS, for example, you have to do the prefix, the typical, and then create the SDK library. And the way it looks is really, it's kind of model-driven library. So SDK, what you get is mimicking your API operations. So you have a post, you have a delete, you have get, you have put, and really the same thing. You get a class with your data structure. You populate and you use the SDK from your mobile application. So it kind of simplifies your life as a developer. You don't have to worry about it. So I think that's everything I had today. Any questions?
Actually, we have a couple questions up on the
Okay.
screen, so if you want to repeat them, and you can.
How do we get the slides? I can share it if you'd like to. So
yeah, so we'll send out a recap and make sure they get put in the digital booklet.
okay. What mechanism do you use to distribute the API key to authorized clients? It's a very good question. So a lot of the things I was talking about. Let me see. Go back here. There's a few things that are not part of the talk, like authorization. Definitely, you don't want to open up your API to just anybody, right? You need to know who performed the operation. So there's a lot more into the infrastructure than just what I demonstrated. But typically, in our systems, there is a business level agreement because our APIs are usually issued just for the client that we have some business agreement with. Then we would actually generate a unique API key for every request like that. And then there's things about refreshing and so on. So there is a lot more into this to build infrastructure to share your API key. It's not part of the serverless can only do so much for you. This is more for development. But if you want to create your API key management infrastructure, there'll be another level to it. Business agreement, make sure the URL that request is coming from is the right one. A lot of these things need to happen. So we would actually have a portal for the business people to, enter all the information, enter the URL that requests are expected from. So we have several levels of protection. So there'll be, to make this business ready, there is another new project just to manage the API keys, right? So I hope that answered the question. And then, so using SLS, can you retain some of the assets between deployments, such as database? Actually, that was one of my experiences. The Dynamodb won't let you delete your table if there is a data in there. So yes, you can, absolutely you can. I think and you want to, right? Database, for example. But I believe beyond database, there should not be need. As Calvin was saying, the good practice is I shouldn't be attached to my infrastructure. I want to be able to take it down, and maybe even your load balancer will want to spin up new instances of it. So I think, again, this is more about designing the solution properly. But yes, you don't want command line to delete your database that has valuable data, right? So again, I believe by default your database is not deleted if you have something in it. So you actually have to go and get rid of it. It will always create a new table with different name for you. So if you want to keep just adding tables and use different ones, you can do that. I don't think you can change the name of the table in DynamoDB. So there's a lot of things you're not allowed to. But yes, that would be my answer to it.
If you also have questions, I can bring the microphone around. Well, if not, I will give Igor a big round of applause. Thank you for coming out for IndyPy. And so we're into our first break of the day. And to kick off the first break, I had mentioned this at the PyData event last fall, but we are still interested in working on a mentorship program for IndyPy. So I've got a new group of people in the house here. So I want to gauge some interest in doing a mentorship program if we were to put something like this together. In the room, who here has been a mentor? Do we have some mentors in the room? I can raise my hand for that one too. So a few mentors, that's awesome. Now, who in the room has been a mentee? I thought we'd have a few more, but I think that now who has experienced a positive impact of those people out of that relationship? I'd hope it's 100%. Okay. If you are interested in being a mentor or a mentee, even if you've never been one or other of those, please make sure you come talk to me or Mary Beth. We're definitely interested in putting something together where we can match folks together in our community to make sure that they can get the resources and the mentorship that they need, from both sides. I think it's rewarding to be a mentor and be a mentee. I don't do technology mentoring, but I do the YMI mentoring here in the schools with the youth, and I really enjoy it. I think it's been a really rewarding way to help folks kind of on their journey in life. So if you are interested in that, please come see me. I would love to talk about it and kind of gauge your interest. I'll put your name down as an interested party. Promise I won't spam you for anything else. But we will have, also, if you have questions, don't forget to put them up on Slido. There are restrooms. We're going to have, there's still coffee. I think there's still donuts. Otherwise, I'm going to make Doug eat them all. So we don't want to see that. I know he doesn't want that, but maybe we'll put him up on stage and actually have him do it. Should we do that later? All right, we'll try and protect Doug's health and eat those donuts. So again, if you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to talk to myself, Mary Beth, Carol, and Matt are in the back. We do have IndyPy shirts. So the snake oil every second Tuesday of the month. We have the original IndyPy blue T-shirt and the famous IndyPy scarves for $15. We're going to do something special with that hat. So if you want that hat, you wait till later. We'll do a quick little auction for that at the very end of the day. And I tell you what we'll do is we'll take whatever money we raise from auctioning off that last hat, we will donate that to the PyLadies organization. So they'll get a direct donation that won't come to us or IndyPy. Whatever we raise from that auction of the last IndyPy hat, we'll send it off right straight to the PyLadies group to help them get women to the various conferences. Speaking of various conferences, PyCon is coming up. I believe it is sold out. Does anyone know? Oh, well, I'll check on that. If you can get a ticket, I do know of one that's for sale if it is sold out. Let me talk to me if you want to go and have an interest. I can probably hook you up with the person who has the ticket for sale. And it's a good conference. It's a lot of fun. It's a great way to get in touch with the community and Python. So we'll see you guys all back here at 11:15 is the end of the break. And we will kick off at 11:15. What's the next talk up there? Automating data cleanup with Matt Yancey. So we will have Matt give us a great talk about automation and cleaning data. That'll happen at 11:15 right back here. We'll see you guys then. Hope you all are enjoying the break. We'll get started in about 5 minutes, so you still got 5 minutes. There's no need to hurry back to your seat yet, but we'll have you guys get. We'll have what's it? Yep, Aaron. Yeah, Matt. I went to school with Aaron Yancey, so that's why first thing came to my head. So Matt will be up next in about 5 minutes with automating our data cleanup. Again, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to see me, Carol, Mary Beth, Doug, Matt. We've got lots of folks in the room who are willing to help you guys with anything you need. And I look forward to the rest of the day.
Hey, just wanted to let you guys know you did a great job on the donuts. There's only one left, so the race for the last donut starts now.